Hot 97. Now, Edwin Raymond, you're part of the NYPD 12.
Correct.
Now, explain this a little bit more so people have a better understanding.
Okay, so one of the policies of the NYPD is arrest quotas. And the arrest quotas are primarily in Black and Hispanic communities, where officers are pressured to have a certain amount of arrest, summonses, and even stop and frisk up until the Floyd versus NYC case, where the judge ruled it unconstitutional. Prior to that case, stop and frisk was also one of the three things that we were pressured to, to get. There was a set number. Sometimes the number isn't always set.
Right.
It's just, applied, like implied.
Yeah.
But there's a set number of arrests, summonses, and stop and frisk for officers to get an immense pressure to get it, and consequences if you don't get those numbers. So NYPD 12 is basically 12 officers who decided we're not going to go along with this because it's already illegal. It's a labor law violation, but it's being ignored completely by the NYPD and 12 officers that we didn't know each other. It's just the perfect,
That's crazy.
Yeah, the perfect storm of complainants found the same attorney through different methods, and he put us together as 12.
Yeah.
And we are in a class action trying to fight this thing, trying to get a federal judge to change these practices.
And now you're the lead plaintiff in the lawsuit.
It's Raymond versus NYC.
Wow.
Yeah, it's an honor, and hopefully we get the victory. We have to. When you're doing what's right, good things have to happen, and we're doing it for the people. We're not worried about ourselves. If we were, we'd just conform and go along. You understand? You got to remember, everything that's happening right now, nationwide, in the criminal justice system, everything starts with the initial point of contact with police officers. Before you could get railroaded at court, before you could get beat up in jail, etc. It starts with police officers. We have to make that initial contact, make the decision to arrest you, and that's when it starts. Now, if that decision is made on good faith, that's one thing. But when it's being made because of quotas and pressure, it's horrible.
Absolutely.
And when I say pressure, I'm talking about if you need a day off, the first thing they'll ask you is, have you met the quota? Imagine you have to go to your child's graduation or something important in your life and you need a day off. The first thing you asked is, have you met the quota? And if you haven't, you're not getting a day off. If you just closed on a home, had a baby, anything that requires additional income, if you don't meet the quota regularly, you're not going to get overtime. You understand? So officers are stuck. Yeah. And we don't like it. I'll tell you, I'm speaking for thousands when I say we don't like it. The thing is, most just go along because it's seemingly easier option, but they're crushed inside. They hate it. So although you'll see the commissioner saying BS to my allegations, and they're kind of ignoring it. Really and truly, a lot of officers have reached out, recognized me in the street, and they said, "We're rooting for you, man. Because if this thing changes, all of us benefit." Although it's only 12 stepping up and putting our names out there are definitely more officers willing to speak up. And there have been in the past. I have to mention Officer Michael Birch. There was a recent audio released with a captain telling him, you only stopped male, why did you only stop 2 male blacks out of everyone that you stopped? 10 male Hispanics, good. Basically asking them, why are you enforcing the law when it's white folks and women? Which is illegal. That's a violation of the 14th Amendment. But this is the reality. And, this was in transit. Transit can move anyone from one part of the city to the other. So this is why you had that conversation. Today, because of gentrification, you get mixed precincts that were once predominantly all black or all Hispanic, have white folks walking around. And you'll see when they start getting, the same enforcement, you get pulled to the side and say, focus on this part of the precinct.
Wow.
Yeah, it's disgusting.
Now, you're an active police officer.
Yeah, I just came from work.
How are other police officers acting toward you? I know people have reached out, but have you gotten some resentment, pushback?
Very little, very little.
Wow, that's... Yeah. I didn't expect that.
Me neither. I prepared for something completely different.
Absolutely.
But it just goes to show you how much police officers don't agree with everything that's detrimental about the system. It's just literally how they pay their bills.
Yeah.
And you feel powerless. It's a paramilitary organization where it's all about rank. It's like the military. When you lack the rank, you almost have no voice. You are literally just following orders, and the orders come all the way from the top. You see a lot of reform measures aiming at the cops on the bottom, putting cameras on cops, and this for the cops. The cops are just following bad policy. The people who create and implement the policy are at the top. This is where the focus should be. When it comes to reform, legislation, anything that's going to bring real change, you got to focus at the top.
Right. Do you think you guys are going to be successful?
We have to be. I can't even see another outcome. We have to be.
Yeah. So now I want to make sure I'm understanding the situation correct. The captain, who I guess encourages quotas, just got promoted.
Yes, and that's something that's being missed with the audio. A lot of people are saying, oh my God, listen to this, and they're missing that point. And he was promoted by the current commissioner who, in the fall of 2014, publicly said he was going to try to fix things. You know, he said, we're going to go after those who are racist. There are people that don't belong in this department. And he promotes one who's on the record. You know, there are many others.
So the person that we're hearing in the audio who's encouraging the quotas, he just got promoted.
Just got promoted about a month ago, yes.
This is the problem.
Absolutely. It's at the top. The problem is at the top. Look at the current FBI probe, where every week another, high official is being investigated or handcuffed and questioned by the FBI. The problem has always been at the top.
What can be done?
I have great supervisors where I work now. I was actually supposed to be promoted to sergeant in December. That unfortunately didn't happen because of the same captain. He was actually my captain. In the audio that was just released, he was captain of another command.
Yeah.
And in July of last year, about a year ago, he became my captain, and he forced my sergeant to falsify evaluation documents to sabotage my promotion. So yeah, in December I was supposed to be promoted. I wasn't promoted. I got kicked out and sent to another precinct. And thankfully, I've had great supervisors there. From the leadership to the supervisors, it's been a very different experience for me, which I didn't expect, and I'm thankful for.
Can you tell us where that was before? What precinct and who the captain is?
Yeah, I was a transit cop, Transit District 32. The base is in Crown Heights, but they cover mostly the middle area of Brooklyn, Flatbush, Crown Heights, parts of East New York, Brownsville, Park Slope, even. His name is, it's pronounced Tahas, and now it's no longer Captain Tahas, it's Deputy Inspector Tahas. When you're a Deputy Inspector, if you walk into a room, everyone has to stand. This is how much authority and power you now yield. Yeah. So the guy that's forcing officers to be racist when they don't want to be, just got that much power, that much more power to implement that racism. This is basically the paragon of everything wrong with policing in America. You can hear in that audio this perception of blacks and Hispanics as the criminals, even with the absence of criminality. It's a problem, and this is what leads to someone who's telling you they're armed as a courtesy getting shot. This is what leads to someone with their hands up sitting you have the most tactical advantage ever with no type of firearm shown. This is what can lead to someone getting shot because they look like me. Because this isn't something exclusive to policing. This is overall American culture, overall American perception and treatment of blacks for over 400 years. Yeah. So we're working at it. Hopefully we get all the victories we need. But this one we have to get. We have to.
And you're a proud police officer.
Absolutely.
And you love what you do.
I do. It's an honor to serve you and everyone else in the city. I always tell anyone I'm probably the most approachable cop you'll ever meet. We have the community affairs unit, which I have a lot of respect for. But every officer should be a community officer. It should be part of the job.
Right.
Not just cheap talk and talking points and fluff. It should be a genuine part of the job.
Do you feel that maybe our communities need? I feel like you're such a great police officer, right? If we had more police officers, I guess there probably are. We just don't ever hear about them. We don't see their stories. Where you're actually in the community, people on a first name basis. Where do you think we can improve to create this trust between police officers and civilians?
It has to start at the top. Again, those officers exist, but you barely know of them because the current system does not recognize nor reward that. You know, you're not going to make detective because you're a great community officer. You're not going to, it happens rarely, but it happens with a lot of political pressure.
Yeah.
You're not going to get more overtime for being a community officer. Or everything is incentivized. Everything that's incentivized is arrest and summonses. That's it. You know, you almost don't matter. You're not even, when you get a high amount of arrests and summonses, you're called a worker. You know, so as if everything else you can do as a police officer isn't considered work. And this starts from the top. If you want to bridge the gap where officers are actually out there interacting with the community, the incentives have to go behind that. And who sets the incentives are the people at the top. So you have to go to the top. Your elected officials, the mayor. You got to go to the top. Everyone should know who their commanding officer is if they reside in the 5 boroughs. And any issue you have, you bring it directly to the commanding officer, directly to your council member, congressman, state senator, state assemblyman, U.S. senator. You know, you gotta hold the government accountable. Tax dollars come from your pay to pay them. You know, technically, when I get paid, that's you. It says the city of New York. That represents you. You know, my boss is not, those supervisors, the mayor, the commissioner, they're not my boss. You're my boss. You're our boss. So you have to hold us accountable.
What are the steps so that people understand the first step? Like, how do we get to that point? Like, who do we go and complain to? Because I feel like sometimes complaining goes nowhere. Like, how do we empower the people and good police officers together so that we are fighting the systematic issues?
Again, the top. Right now, the mayor should not be able to stand in front of any podium and not be questioning about what's going on with policing. The fact that, he shouldn't be able to pass the question off to the commissioner. Every way he goes, whether it's housing or what, no matter what the issue is, the arts, housing, no matter what he's there for, he should be peppered with questions about policing, because this is what, it's only a matter of time before everything aligns itself and we have another hashtag in New York. It's only a matter of time. Statistically, we will be there again.
As a police officer, I mean, I feel like such a tough situation for you at times. I can only imagine. And then you'll hear that there's police officers who have been murdered, and they're innocent as well in Dallas. I mean, your heart has to be
absolutely horrible. You know, that's just, in no way is that a solution. That's only going to bring more issues. That is not a solution whatsoever to murder innocent people. It's basically the same thing you're complaining about. You're doing. That's not the way. You know, we have a system that's far from perfect. That's really never worked for people of color.
Yep.
But we have to use it as much as we can. It's the most successful victories when it comes to reform have been people who have used the system. Civil Rights Act in the 60s, took Dr. King and the other freedom fighters. They didn't do this stuff overnight. It took over a decade to get the respect that they deserve, before they can get legislation passed. We have to keep at it, keep it civil. Murdering officers is just not the way, and I think about it. Imagine I'm risking my career and livelihood, and I could easily be the person in the car that a person choose to randomly murder just because I'm in a uniform. That's horrible.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
How do we deal with police officers when you see a situation like Charles Kinzie, right? A therapist who's putting his hands in the air. He's laid on his back, who's literally a therapist, a caregiver. He was helping an autistic student and he gets shot.
Yeah.
And I mean, how do we tell a young person, Black, Hispanic, minority, Black man, hey, this is how you protect yourself? Like, it's almost like, look, anything you do, you might end up getting killed. I mean, literally, we're watching Charles Kinzie on the floor with his hands up.
When I watched that video, he did absolutely nothing wrong. He did everything right. There's nothing I can tell someone that he did wrong that you should do different if you're in a similar situation. He did everything right. Everything, the fault goes completely on that officer. And this is, again, this perception of Black men as violent, as criminals, as felons, even with no crime being committed. This is what needs to be tackled, and not just in policing. This is something we have to start really early. I'm in John Jay College now, and there's a course called the NYPD Leadership Course where they teach critical race theory. And last year when I went to DC, at Obama's task force on policing, this is what I advocated as the solution: critical race theory. The course starts with slavery in America,
Right.
and I automatically understood. Everyone is in the course with police officers, and they were like, "What does slavery have to do with policing in America?" This is how much people don't know the history of slave patrol and everything that became modern policing. So critical race theory not only starts with that, but it explains where implicit bias comes from and how vicarious experiences, mostly implicit bias from the media and all sorts of different sources. This is where it comes from. Most white folks have never really had a personal negative interaction with a person of color.
Yeah.
When you look at America, we live in enclaves. The person of color is just a cashier at the mall. Everything they get when it comes to people of color being violent, particularly black men, it comes from TV and other sources of media. And once you put that out there, we're not going to be immune to those, those impulsive thoughts. But once you know the facts, you can correct it while it's happening. I'll share something from Tim Wise, who's an anti-racist activist. He gave a speech, I believe it was either last year or 2 years ago, where this guy, he's one of the best when it comes to speaking out against racism. He said he was taking a plane and he'd been flying for decades, and he saw something that he never saw in his life: 2 black pilots, a black pilot and a black co-pilot. And his immediate thought was, are they qualified to fly this plane? And if this is someone who has dedicated his life's work to speaking out against racism, and yet he can still have those impulsive thoughts, all of us can have it. He quickly corrected it, and obviously he's still here with us. He landed safely. But we need to basically work on correcting those thoughts when they happen, because they're going to happen until we changed media and so many other things. They're going to happen. But if we can get the training to correct it, we will get better outcomes.
Being a police officer and knowing the history of police in America and talking about slave patrol, is it still a conflict for you?
At times, yes. But because I understand, it also helps me become a better police officer, because I understand when I put that uniform on, I'm inheriting all of that history. They don't know Edwin Raymond. They know the cop, Officer Raymond, the most from my name, from my nameplate. So these experiences that we've had as people of color for centuries, from slave patrol to modern policing to things happening today. Once you understand the history of policing, you should be able to understand, as a police officer, it's not you, it's not personal. You inherit everything good and everything bad about the job. Unfortunately, most people, they take it personal. I never take it personal. You don't know me. You don't know Edwin Raymond. But the professional Officer Raymond, will treat you, as a professional.
I'm surprised that they haven't tried to fire you or something.
Well,
is that just too? I mean, I feel like that might be too blunt, but it just. The
commissioner about 3 weeks ago said that I should leave. I should resign. That I don't want to do police work. I'm a conscientious objector. And that's rhetoric that goes. When you keep hearing people say, it's just rhetoric that goes around it. People don't really apply thought to. Conscientious objector is someone who wouldn't even join an institution from not agreeing with how the institution operates. I joined because everything written is noble. Everything on paper is actually quite noble. But the thing is, what's actually being done is different from what's written. So when you really look at it on a technical scale, I'm just following the law, completely.
That's on paper.
Exactly. Including not violating the quota law. I'm just following the law at the end of the day. And the fact that I can say that as my defense is why you can never say I'm a conscientious objector. Because the backdoor stuff, the illegal stuff, if I'm objecting to that, that's noble. That's good. That's
right.
I'm a cop. I'm not going to do something illegal. No matter how normalized it is in policing, no matter how embedded it is in policy that's on the surface designed to be objective, but we see the racial outcomes. And you heard it with the Birch tape.
Yeah. What's crazier is that people think it's fake. They think that the NYPD 12 might be actors. They think that the recording's not real.
I've read some things that said you can't. I'm a government agent sent here to pacify the folks. Listen, I'm what you see is what you get. approach me in the street, you'll be surprised the knowledge
You're
that
from
I have.
here.
I'm from Flatbush, born and raised. I'm Haitian.
Yeah.
Sac passe, big on my Haitians.
Yeah.
I'm from Flatbush, born and raised in Brooklyn, patrol Brooklyn. This is. I'm not again, some of the things that I'm reading is like, wow, but I don't blame them still, because I understand how rare this is.
It's extremely rare.
Because I'm not worried about myself. I'm worried about, like, I don't have children, but the young men and women I see out there, the kid, I consider them my kids, It takes a village. So just to know what's going to happen once they turn 16, because once you're 16, you're tried as an adult in the state of New York automatically. And just to know what's going to happen I can't sit here and, give them high fives and knowing what's coming in 9-10 years. I can't, I'd be a fraud. So my objective and the other officers is to try to do what we can from inside to change the system, so those young kids that are PALs and all these police officers are engaging with can become teenagers that don't get hunted, because this is what's happening.
Yeah. After everything's been out and you speaking up, have people that you do run into, the areas that you do patrol, have they been showing you love?
Absolutely. I think it's the hair. People recognize me from the NBC taping that we did with Sarah Wallace. Some people recognize me from the article, the New York Times article also. And they say, man, thank you. Like, are you real? I said, yeah, I'm real. They'll take a photo and they just keep saying, thank you. Thank you. We really appreciate what you're doing. Even if you're not successful, you have done what you could for your people, and we appreciate it anyway. But we're going to be successful. We have to be successful.
Have to.
Honestly, I don't even see I don't see another option. We have to be successful with this lawsuit. There is no other option. Forcingly, New York City could be the leader in police reform if we are successful with this lawsuit.
Yes. So now this lawsuit, where is it at this point, and what's the process?
Well, the city, their strategy is always to try to get cases dismissed. So they're trying everything. They're looking at case law. They're looking, they're looking for holes in our complaint. They're doing what their job is as attorneys to get the case dismissed. And our attorneys are responding to, present to the judge why the case should go on to become certified class action. That's where it's at. It's just in the back and forth, the early back and forth, where the city's trying to get the case dismissed. Here's the problem, though. The city's law department is funded by taxpayers and should have the best interest of taxpayers.
Yeah.
And the best interest of taxpayers is an NYPD without quotas. Yeah. So to use the taxpayers to fund the city in defending its quota system, it's a horrible conflict of interest, and it's not at the best interest of the taxpayers. That's something that I wish someone could try to fight for, because if you're the city's law department, you should be here for the city, not for the institution that's engaging in racist policing.
What do you think we should do?
Elected officials, don't just elect, don't just go vote Democrat, and then these people get in office and you don't keep them under pressure. They now have work to do. We have to keep our elected officials, on their toes. Don't just vote them in and then vote them in again, and then they're not actually doing things.
I mean, I really want this lawsuit to work in your favor, all of our favor, because honestly, if they really look at it, if this helps the NYPD and reforms it to be a better system, right? It really could build trust between us, the people, and the police officers.
I guarantee it will, because it would give officers back their discretion.
And integrity.
Exactly. Because I'm telling you, when it's towards the end of the month, and you haven't had that arrest, you start doing what's called in policing ice picking, meaning anything goes. Me placing my phone on an empty 2 a.m. train, I can get arrested for this because I'm occupying more than one seat. Arrested, not summons, arrested, record and everything. Exactly. And when it's towards the end of the month, and you haven't met the quota, you start seeing people going for those types of things: bike on the sidewalk, spitting, jaywalking, park after dark, open container.
And they'll arrest them for these things.
No, arrest record, something you have to answer for when it's time to get a job. Have you ever been arrested, Nessa? You have to check yes. Well, we'll give you a call back, and then you never hear them back from them, because in this competitive economy, there's 10,000 people behind you that have never been arrested. So how long? You're 19. trying to work at, a retail job that just denied you. So 5 years later, you're 24 with a daughter. How long can you keep trying to do it legitimately before you start doing something felonious to feed your child? And now you get caught for a felony and they just write you off as a prisoner. But no one takes it back to when you were 16 or 19 and had a bag next to you on the train and got arrested because an officer had to meet his quota. This stuff is all connected. You have to connect these dots and see how this leads to mass incarceration, amongst other things.